had mentorship from Leopard Man of India himself, Shaz Jung, who filmed National Geographic's documentary titled The Real Black Panther. With this brief background, may I request Mr. Dhruv Patil to take over. Before that, I take this opportunity to welcome our Honorable KSTA member and mentor for us also, Professor B.G. Mulimani sir, who was the Vice Chancellor of BLD University, and previous to that, he was Gulbarga University Vice Chancellor. He has been a source of guidance and spirit for us. In most of the webinars, sir will be present and encouraging us. Thank you very much for your presence, sir. Welcome. And of course, Dr. Kushal Das is a, what to say, is also a sort of guide for me. He has been organizing many programs in association with KSTA. We are grateful to you, sir. On this occasion, welcome to you also. Dhruv, with this, please, and also I welcome all the participants who have joined on this occasion. Welcome to you and greetings once again. Over to you, Dhruv, for your presentation.
Just before,
thank you.
Just
Yes,
before, sir, Ramesh, sir, can I request you, is it YouTube link?
Yeah, YouTube, both YouTube and this one, Cisco WebEx.
Yes, sir.
Many students have joined on YouTube because
Yeah.
some feel that Cisco WebEx is a bit complicated to join. They'll be joining on
Yeah,
YouTube.
that's right. That's the reason I'm asking, sir. Yeah, kindly share the YouTube link later, sir.
In the chat box, it is there, sir, YouTube link.
Chat box. Okay, sir. Thank you. Dhruv, please go on.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Professor Ramesh, for the warmest and welcome. It's such an honor. It's such a pleasure to be here. Such a pleasure to address all the professors, dignitaries, and all the students across the world, and anyone who's watching this. It's such a pleasure to be here. I guess I'd take any time off just for wildlife and conservation. That's something that needs special attention, no matter where I am in the world, from New York to Bangalore. I guess wildlife and conservation have to always be a part of us, I guess, especially given these times where the world is heading today. It's something that's very necessary, and that, humble to just be given this chance to speak here. And hopefully I'm audible and hope everyone can hear me. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Please continue.
Perfect. So beginning with my journey, I think just a second, sir. So yeah, beginning with my journey, I think Mr. Ramesh gave the perfect start. Ramesh sir, thank you so much. As Ramesh sir said, my journey began when I was just 8 years old. I just found a street dog in Aliaska Road in Bangalore, and it had a plastic spot stuck to its neck. And I always wondered, like, what's going to happen? Because I used to go to the school by bus at that time. And when I was going in the bus, I saw this dog and there was blood coming out. It was bleeding. And I was like, what can I do as a kid to help it? But I went to school that day, and the 9 hours flew by. When I was coming back from school in the bus again, I saw the same dog, but it had received no help from any adult or whoever passed by that road that day. And I was shocked, being a kid while seeing so many responsible adults that may have passed it that day, that this one dog could not receive help. And the first thing we did was take it to the vet, and I wanted that dog to get treatment and to stay alive. And that's where my compassion for dog comes in. It's because of my parents. Many people ask me, why do I like animals? And, why do I do all of this when I don't have to? But I guess it's just something innate. It's something that's been within me. It's something that's part of nature. I was born like that, with love for dogs, with love for animals. And that's where it's gotten me today, where I can say I'm trying my best as a student to make an impact on this planet. So, this is Kabini. I'll be talking way more about it in the rest of the presentation. For those of you who don't know Kabini, it's a forest near Bangalore, and I'll be talking more in detail about it in the next in the future slides, where I'm going to be talking about photography. So starting with SPPA, as I said, it was my peers' reaction that really, brought SPPA to its forefront. So this is me in the middle. This is Shreyas Kuchi Botla to the right side and Gautam Dayal to the left. They're my co-founders of SPPA. And we, at the age of 8, when we were in third grade, we saw these dogs and these birds around Bangalore in pain, and we were like, what can we do as kids to help it? So we started a school club. SPPA was never meant to be something big. It's something that our vision further took us, and I'm grateful for it. But it honestly started just as a school club, and this is how SPPA started, with the three of us going around school asking people, hey guys, if you have an injured dog in your area, we can help it, or you guys should do something to help it, to spread awareness. And that's basically how SPPA started and how my journey into conservation began. So over the years, SPPA has rescued over 60 animals. These are just a few of them. We've rescued dogs, squirrels, we rescued horses, birds of different species, miners, crows, pigeons, barbets. We've rescued almost animals of every kind. Our volunteers have rescued snakes. We've really been doing our bit everywhere across the world if we have the opportunity. And just a little story that I want to give you guys is of our most recent rescue, Ellie the Horse. We rescued Ellie in the district of Bijapur back in 2020 during the lockdown, where we were going to the plantation, a tree plantation, and we saw this horse just being abandoned by whoever the horse owned, because it had an injury. And we were like, we have to do something. We can't just let it be there. There were maggots in its leg. It was going to die with the amount of bleeding that was happening. And with the help of SPPA and the community that we have, we got a truck, and we loaded Ellie into a truck, and we took her to the veterinary department in Bijayapur. And almost for a year she was dressed every week, and she got treatment for a leg every week. And you can see the difference between the picture on the bottom, which was before, and the picture after she was healed. And you can see the difference between how thin she was, with almost malnourished, and then after we gave her food and gave her all the support she needs. So Ellie is one of our, like, it's something that I've been very attached to, one of our biggest rescues in terms of animal size. So here's just a story about one animal that we've rescued, and SPPA does so much more. And I'll be sharing about the future campaigns so that you guys, whoever's watching today, whoever ever sees this video, you guys can also join us, be a part of this impact. So I'm going to be talking more about SPPA in the next few slides, and then I'll be connecting it with my parallel of photography, and how they both connect. So as Ramesa said again, in 2013, I got this. From 2013, we've been adopting animals in the Mysore Zoo, and this was in 2017, where Indian Express and Deccan Herald covered that I was actually in my school where we used to have show and tell. I think pretty much every Indian school still has that, where one day you have a science fair or a technology fair where parents and kids come to your school. And we had the same thing, and I sold origami craft, and we earned enough money that we wanted to adopt animals in the Mysore Zoo. So I made origami for almost like straight week with my friends, and then we sold this origami, and we adopted 5 animals in the Mysore Zoo. And till date, we still adopt these animals. And the best part is, if you can see the picture, there is the elephant, that's Chamundi, and the leopard, that's Chintu. They have names, and I'll be telling you the significance of that as well. And I've seen Chintu and Chamundi since they were young, since Chintu was a cub and Chamundi was a calf. And seeing these leopards since they were young was like seeing a sibling or a family member grow along with you. And it was the first thing I did. Was I said, I need to adopt these. I need to do whatever I can to help these animals in the zoo. So Mysore Zoo had this adoption scheme. They still do have it. You can check their website. And I was like, let's adopt these animals. So this was one of the first external campaigns done by SPPA with a different organization. So between 2017, we adopted animals and we just rescued animals. And SPPA was dormant, or we did the same thing. It was active, but we only did a few activities like rescuing till 2019. And in 2019, I had this vision for SPPA, saying we have to do something bigger, something that can affect, the world on a macro stage, where we can impact students and large number of animals, a large number of people. And the first thing you think of India is, see, today I have a smartphone, people have a smartphone. We all have access to technology. In fact, this meeting is on, where you guys are watching it on YouTube on a laptop, iPad, or a smartphone. But many of these rural students, children of farmers and farmers themselves, do not have access to smartphones. They may only have keypad phones or maybe, laptops that cannot run apps, or they may not use this for reading news, right? It's just for the purpose of making a call or sending a message. And I was like, these rural students need to know about issues like climate change and global warming. Me, I learned that all through, because see, it's not the sad truth is in our academics, we never have the topic of global warming. Though many of the teachers teach it, there's no academic subject that relates to global warming and conservation. So the first thing that I thought was I need to teach these students because I had a cell phone. My friends in Bangalore had a cell phone. We all, even people in Bijapur by then had cell phones, and we were like, everybody knows what global warming is in the city, but when it comes to these villages, nobody knows what global warming is or what is wildlife conservation and how, these people in rural areas can contribute. So in the district of Bijapur, we gathered people from over 16 villages, from over almost, I think, 30 or 40 schools. And there were 4,200 odd students that came and witnessed this event. And we taught them about global warming, climate change, animal conservation, and a special, thing that I'd like to bring here is Vijayapur, a land known for drought, which again I'll be sharing with you guys, had flamingos and flamingos near these villages. And these farmers, thinking flamingos would ruin their crops, would often place reflectors. And those reflectors would often blind the birds and, not make them come there or, rest in the backwater. So farmers unknowingly did that, but flamingos only eat shrimp and they do not destroy crops. So we had to educate these children because they're the next generation. They're probably the next generation of farmers. That you should not harm these flamingos because they're such rare species that migrate all the way from sometimes from Iran, sometimes from Ran of Kutch, sometimes even from Europe. We get greater flamingos that come to India. And I was like, you cannot just, harm them, but these people they don't have the access to knowledge. And the first I wanted to give them that knowledge, and we successfully did this campaign with over 4,200 students, one of SPPA's biggest student-led campaign. And we've done many such campaigns like that. So talking about SPPA's philosophy, um, every NGO that I have also seen or been a part of, be it any NGO, we often ask for donations and we're like, please donate to us so we can rescue an animal, or please like our Instagram post and then we're going to save an animal, or you guys as volunteers do something so that we save animals. But my philosophy with SPPA was different. I don't want it to be any other NGO that just does it for the sake of donations or only if we have funds that we can do something. With the great support that we have and the great community that we have, I am blessed for all the people that join us. And SVPA's goal was just that we first make the impact. When we planted 10 million trees with the forest department or fed 6,000 stray animals, we didn't ask other people to do it or we didn't ask people to donate to us. We first fed 6,200 stray animals with over 800 kgs of food. And then we publicize it on social media saying SVPA has done this. What can you guys do? And as I said, we're blessed to have this great community around us. But SPPA's philosophy is make the impact first, conserve the animal, or save the animal first, and then publicize it. Don't ask for donation or don't. It is a cost consuming process, but I think it's something we have to bear initially, maybe personally or maybe through close family and friends. But eventually, once the animal is saved, then seeking donations for that animal or recovering that seems a great idea rather than letting those animals suffer. So that's the main philosophy that I ran behind SPPA, and everything is youth centric because we are the next generation, whether we like it or not. Me and students who are watching this today, you guys are the next generation, and this should pass on to the generations that come after us because we honestly have the most time left on this planet. We have another 60, 70 years, God forbid, global warming and other crises. But, we have the next 60, 70 years, and we have to make this impact. We cannot rely on older generations to make the impact, but the youth has to step forward, and we as the youth have to take this responsibility on our shoulders to save this one planet that we have. Because until Elon Musk finds another planet, or somebody else finds another planet, or maybe Mars has a colony, until Mars has a colony, or whichever planet we find, we do not have a second home. It's only Earth, and we have to save it. So another campaign that we did from SPPA, just briefly going over it, was Bowls for Birds. Every year we do this campaign called Bowls for Birds, where students bring recycled materials like plastic bottles, ice cream sticks, dried coconut, and they make creative bird feeders, and we do it in the sort of a competition in different schools. So this is one of our campaign that we have done, and I think over the years across Bangalore and Bijapur, we've had around 500 bird feeders. So that's one of our major campaigns that we've done. And this, our biggest campaign that Ramesh sir said as well, was Feed the Strays, where entire India, almost heard about SPPA, because we fed over 6,000 animals, which is, trust me, guys, not a small number. Because we often never thought what we can do in the pandemic. We all sat at home, we were like, oh, COVID there, COVID here. We should not go out. And nobody thought about these animals. So if you see the dogs in the middle picture, that was the first day when we went out to feed stray dogs, and see how malnourished the baby is because they had no access to food. If you think of stray animals, right? Just thinking of connecting, life with stray animals. There's a hotel, or there's a restaurant, or there's a bakery, and these stray dogs are always around the bakery, because this bakery often throws some bread, or some person eats something and throws it there, and these dogs, they thrive off of this waste. Let's talk about a tourist site, right? So one of our volunteers, Pawan from Mysore, he fed monkeys in Chamundi Hills in Mysore. And all these tourists that come, they eat bananas, they eat fruits, and they throw it down. And the monkeys in these tourist areas, they come and they eat that food. And that everything stopped during the COVID-19 lockdown, because no restaurants were open, no bakeries were open, no hotels were open, no tourists anywhere. So all these animals needed food, and that's something that SPPA realized quick. We adapted to the situation, and we were like, animals need us more than ever now, and all these domestic animals especially. So from BLDE, which was our institution, they gave us over 600 kgs of food, along with 200 kgs of food across Mumbai, Delhi, Dubai, Egypt. From different countries, we had our chief volunteers and SPPA members who came front, and across two countries, 12 cities, we fed 6,000 animals, including monkeys, birds, dogs, um, cattle, as you can see. So as Feed the Strays was one of SPP's biggest and most proud campaigns, and we're going to be continuing it further as well. So I've been saying Bijapur, Bijapur a lot, and for those of you who don't know it, I'm sorry, but here's the explanation now. So you guys might have been lost, but bringing it back together, what is Vijayapur? Why am I talking about it? Vijayapur is my native. I was born and brought up in Bangalore, but my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents are all from this great city. And in the picture, if you've ever heard of Vijayapur, you must have known that Gol Gumbaz exists and nothing beyond that. Gol Gumbaz, after the Vatican City Saint Basilica's Church in the Vatican City near Italy. So after that, Michelangelo's built after Michelangelo built the single largest stone dome. This is the second largest single stone dome in the entire world. And that is what Bijapur is known for its rich history, for the kings, and from Adil Shah to everyone that ruled this place and left this rich Indo-Persian history in this city. And Vijayapur, apart from history, is known for drought. People often know Bijapur is hot. People know that summers here are not bearable. Summer may go up to 45 degrees Celsius, or about that's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So it goes up to 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. And they compare it to Jaisalmer, where people say, Bijapur has 0. Almost 1% forest cover. And with our goal, my goal, which I'll be sharing with you throughout this presentation, has been to change Vijayapur as not a drought prone district, but every district has its wildlife and animal and biodiversity that I want to showcase. And that's why majority of our campaigns was surrounded around was surrounded, by Bijapur. And that's just a brief of Bijapur. And this is the land. When I say 45 degrees and summers are unbearable, you can imagine what, you know, hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of land like this can be like, where there is no trees, it's just barren land, dry land with almost no surviving wildlife here, because it's not even grassland, right? It's just barren land. So this land is now like this. It's incredible what one project can do, because just one project, which is Koti Vriksha Abhiyan, which was the vision of my dad, and then with the forest department's help, from 2015 to 2020, we had the goal of planting 1 crore or 10 million trees. That is a huge number, one of the largest deforestation projects in the world, which has never been talked about by any article. It's been in the local media, but across the world there are people doing 1 million trees, and people have, so many articles, but one of the largest deforestation projects in the world goes unnoticed, and that is the planting of 1 crore trees in the district of Bijapur. 1 crore trees increase the forest cover of Bijapur from 0.17% to 0.23. That's twice, almost twice the forest cover than Bijapur initially had. And that is the impact I want to bring. When we did Koti Vriksha Abhiyan, we never asked people like, please donate to us so we can plant a tree, or please like our Instagram post to plant a tree. But it was about first making this impact, because until we start, until we set an example, nobody else is going to do it. Once we plant 1 crore trees, there are other people who are going to be like, if they plant 1 crore trees as SPPA, maybe I can plant 10 trees in my house or 100 trees in my neighborhood. And that is the effect that we want to create with SPPA. And across Vijayapur, we have around 100 block plantations, over, I think, 20 nurseries. And that host about 184 different species of plants. And this land has now been turned into this. So that's one of the greatest projects, not only SPPA's work. We were like a promotional, or a rather, supportive partner, but the work of the Forest Department and the Government of India, the Government of Karnataka, we salute them for letting us do and successfully completing this project in just a period of 5 years. So how has SPP achieved promotion? So we're lucky. We're the luckiest people to have such incredible people promote us. The late Puneet uncle, Sonu Sood, my mentor Shaz, one of my closest friends, who's also the world's youngest director, Kishan SS, and Samyukta Harnad, and so many different people across the globe have, who have that following, who have people who can make people believe. We call them influencers because they can influence people's behavior. And SPPA wanted to spread the effect of what we've done. And we have successfully gotten these people as mentors and influencers. And SPPA has really gotten far with them. And this is just one accomplishment of SPPA rather than, a campaign. But we're lucky to have had such people back us, and we're lucky to still have them back us, through the next phases of SPPA. So how can you guys join SPPA? What can you guys do? Like, I'm in New York. How can I impact the animals? Like, because if I was in Bangalore or Bijapur right now, I would be going out feeding stray animals, rescuing dogs myself. But how can we utilize this modern world and technology to, do SPPA's future campaigns? So because I was going to be in New York for the next 3 years, to complete my education, I wanted SPPA to continue thriving. And what we did is we created a calendar, a 12-month calendar for SPPA, where every month has a separate theme. The first month was Veganuary, our most successful month, January, where volunteers, and including myself and all my SPPA committee members, they all sent us, vegan recipes and vegan dishes, and try to be vegan for the entire month, or at least almost the entire month, or try a vegan dish a day. And veganism is all about cutting, about eating vegan food, no dairy, no meat, to reduce the carbon footprint, right? Because of what the meat industry produces. So most of our volunteers used to send us recipes, and we held a competition. And that's January. And February we did Feed the Strays, and even March is going to be a mix of Feed the Strays and animal rescue and animal adoption in Mysore Zoo, where we're going to spread awareness. So if you're watching the video right now, follow SPPA on Instagram, and or there's a WhatsApp group link on SPPA's Instagram, and you can join the WhatsApp group. And we're very active, and we're lucky to have such active volunteers who often share the work they do. And you can be a part of this campaign. As I said, it's not like I'm forcing you. SPPA's goal is not to make it an obligation for you guys to participate or volunteer. It's completely optional. I want you guys. It's an optional thing. I urge you guys, but I want you guys to participate. All the students who are watching this, you guys should participate, but I'm not saying you must, but you should and you can. So please try to participate and feed stray animals. Compete in every of our month campaigns, feeding stray animals. We're going to have bowls for birds next month, animal adoption with Mysore Zoo. You can go to the website. We're going to be posting it on Instagram soon. So you can go to Mysore Zoo's website, adopt animals, and be a part of every campaign. And trust me, even one stray dog that you feed, you know, just think of it, right? If 1,000 students are watching this from KSTA today, which it's a pleasure for me to be talking to you guys. So if 1,000 of you are watching this today, or let's say 100 of you are watching it, 100 of you feed, keep two chapatis. If in your house, if you make chapatis, if you make rice, if you keep one bowl or two chapatis outside your house, that may feed three animals. If 100 people do this, you're feeding 300 stray dogs, right? Let's just take the number. 300 stray dogs. And if another 100 people see you feeding stray dogs, that's another 100 people. And like that, we create this butterfly effect, or this chain, this ripples that you create where people see you and they get inspired. The goal is to inspire people. Just inspire them through your action. Feed a stray dog, build a bowl, build a shelter for birds, uh, you know, adopt an animal, mice or zoo, share it with your friends. And the larger impact we create, trust me, it's not for SPPA's benefit, or anybody else on this panel's benefit or my benefit, but the world you live in is going to be a better place if you start doing it today. So follow us, and we'd love to, chat with you and, promote the work you've already done if you have. So that's SPPA's goal. Everything we have is online: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. We're on every platform, and our goal is to have anyone access it throughout the world. So even if you have remote classes, online classes, you can still be a part of SPPA through social media and participate in our campaigns. And you can do so today. So I spoke about SPPA, and the topic of today's talk is camera and conservation. And people must be like, why is he only talking about SPPA and conservation? Why is there nothing about photography? And I want to see photography and a big camera. And so this is the parallel of photography, where of conservation, where when I was 10, if you saw the first slide, that was my first trip to Kabini. And since the age of 10, I've been visiting Kabini. And how can I explain Kabini to you? If you guys have seen Jungle Book, or seen the movie, or seen the cartoon of Jungle Book and Mowgli, I feel like Mowgli, because I was in this forest with the Black Panther Bagheera, the bears Baloo, Shere Khan, the tiger, and all these different animals. And I felt like I was in paradise because I loved animals, and Kabini was this heaven or this paradise for me. And in December 2020, my life changed when I saw, where after 5 years of hard work, I saw the only tracked or documented Black Panther in the wild. There are so many in probably in South America and America. There's so many in zoos and everything, but the only wild Black Panther that has been photographed and documented, Saya. So lucky, I'm lucky to have been mentored by Shaz, and he's been kind of like the person who's taught me all the pro tips and everything about Kabini, and beyond Kabini, about values in life. So I'm honored to be mentored by Shaz, who filmed this Black Panther for Disney Plus and National Geographic, and he filmed a documentary called The Real Black Panther. So you guys can check it out. And what is photography? How do I define it? See, if you followed me on Instagram or if you know me, I say everybody has their own definition of photography. Photography is not something I can define saying, oh, guys, hey, this is a camera, this is how you do photography. Everyone has a different way of doing photography, different way of editing, and different way of telling their own stories. What is photography for me? Photography for me is, taking pictures of these animals, these rare species, sharing them with you guys, the people of the world, who can then, see these from your home, from your screen, and relate and build character, build that relationship with these animals. And once you guys know, so now I've told you that there's a Black Panther in Kabini. Now you guys are interested about the Black Panther in Kabini. And trust me, that interest that you or 10 other people have that have from today is what pushes you guys to go to Kabini to see the Black Panther. And when you go to see the Black Panther, you're gonna start caring about this Black Panther. And when you start caring about Saya, that's when the world notices the system, the world comes into place, and people want to conserve the wildlife. And that is what I aim to do with photography. Share the stories, inspire people to conserve these animals. Because see, when it comes to SPPA, I have the power to feed stray animals, but when it comes to wildlife and such a big stream which exists across the world, whichever city you're in right now, each city has wildlife. So how do I, if you guys are inspired, and if you guys see this picture or see an animal and want to conserve it, that's what I want to do. Through my lens, you guys must be able to see the personality of an animal and then want to conserve it. That's about uniting camera and conservation. So I've always been a Nikon user since the age of 10. When I went to my first trip to Kabini, I had a Nikon P520. And after that, I had a P600 or a P900. And then I've had my DSLR for my first trip when I went to Africa, when I went to Masai Mara. So yeah, it's just a little bit about the equipment. In photography, especially wildlife, it's all about the lens. Whichever body you use, yes, it matters, but not as much. If you need to have a good lens, and even if you can't afford it, the best part to do is to rent it. If you're going for a 2 or 3 day trip to Kabini, rent a lens. Rent a 200 lens, that gives you enough scope to zoom into the animal and get good pictures, close up pictures of the animals. So that's a little bit about the equipment and the technology that goes behind this. And but a lot about photography, it's about editing and the post processing. Because in most, so I'm in New York, and a lot of my friends do street photography, where they go to Times Square, they go to the Empire State Building, or they go to Soho, and they click pictures of the streets and people on the streets and different buildings. That you have the time, you can set a stand, you can make your manual settings. But in wildlife, if if a tiger is going to walk past your car, you need to have your settings ready. And you can't just sit there, trying to get the right amount of exposure or whatever. And you set a basic setting in aperture mode. You probably set the aperture to the lowest, and you set the exposure to -1, and you start shooting. And majority of your work relies on post processing, which I'm going to talk about later. So Kabini is, as I told you guys, what is Kabini? So this is the main road of Kabini. It's 200. If I'm not wrong, it's 250 kilometers, around 250 kilometers from Bangalore, around I think 60 or 80 kilometers from Mysore, and it's about 870 kilometers square, which is a small size for a national park, but it sounds big. It is big, but compared to the Western Ghats and Nilgiris, it's a little smaller. And there are 9 resorts. And one unique thing about Kabini is it's one of the only forests in India that's open during all seasons. So, if you go to Ranthambore, it's closed for monsoons. If you go to, I think even Jim Corbett is closed for monsoons, but Kabini is one forest that's open during monsoon, summer, winter. Name the season, Kabini is always open. And it's always full as well. That's a disclaimer, because if you guys want to go to Kabini, you have to book at least a month in advance. Because safaris, they book out, extremely fast because of how popular the panther and the tiger sightings in Kabini are. So here are some of the photographs that I have taken just to display one of my people, though the panther, though the panther is one of my, people think that's one of my greatest sightings. It isn't the panther, but it's rather the cubs. After a 12-day trip in Kabini, where we had done about 24 or 25th safari that day, actually, and we had not seen anything. We'd seen like probably two tigers and two leopards, but we'd not had a good sighting. The last half an hour of a safari, there's this lake called Temple Tank, and no, it was Nayanjikate, and this was Nayanjikate female, the tiger's cubs. And I was sitting there and I was like, we're not going to find anything. And we come across this lake, and to the edge, I see the mother and three cubs sitting right beside the lake. And it was one of the most unique sightings I've had in my life. Not the panther, not any leopard, but this is one of the best sightings I've had in my life, where we spent over 30 to 40 minutes with these cubs and the mother. And, it was just absolutely incredible. So, of course, you might now ask me, I said lens and I said post processing. I always like to take a dark approach or a unique. So, when you connect fantasy to the story, when I can connect Jungle Book to Kabini, I find a deeper relationship with Kabini. Now, if you guys think of, like, hey, if this tiger has a name, so if I said Saya the Black Panther, right? So if I say Saya, and if you remember that name, and if you see a fictional approach, when I give a so I'm going to be showing you guys a major part of photography is also writing the story that goes along with it, because when you see it as this fantasical or more, when you see it as this unique artistic way, you connect more with the picture. If you see a normal picture of a tiger, like it's on Google, then you guys are just going to be like, oh, okay, next picture, or like just you're going to scroll or you're going to click on the next picture. But when you see something very unique, when the eye of the tiger, or this is Balu the bear in from Kabini, or for example, this picture, you see the leopard eye, the eye of this male leopard. He's a new male in Saya's territory. He's very young. I think he should be about a year old, maximum a year and a half. And we saw him on I think when I was in Kabini in I think last March, in March 2021. And see, when you see these eyes, these blue eyes staring into your eyes, though it's a little color corrected, though it's a little enhanced, you see the personality of this animal. You see yourself in the leopard. Just, I want you guys to lock your eyes in with this leopard's eyes for just 2 seconds, and just you feel transported to a different world. You see a part of a different, you immerse yourself into the forest and its animals. And that is the experience I want to create with my photography. And when you see yourself, and when you immerse yourself with this animal and the forest, that's when you think, is it just the animal, or how is this leopard going to survive? I want to know the story of this leopard. Now I told you guys that he's 1.5 years old. He's been with the Black Panther. He's been seen around the Black Panther's territory. You want to know, does he fight with the Black Panther? If he and the Black Panther are in the same place, what's the story? What are they going to do, and are they going to fight, or does the Black Panther move away because he's younger? So it's such a unique story, and that's what I want to create with photography. Share these stories so you guys can connect with these animals. So these are wild dogs from Kabini as well. Our national bird, the peacock, langur. So trust me, the best animal in the forest, because if a langur gives you a warning call, that means 100% a tiger or a leopard. Always trust langurs, and it's always worked for me. That's how we saw the panther, if I remember correctly. Shah's heard a langur call on the road, and we were almost like, it was the end of the safari, and Shah's like, langur call on the road, langur call on the road. And we go in front, and there was the Black Panther, walking up the road. And it was such a show. It was after 9,000 minutes finally seeing this only one Black Panther that's been documented, one of the only ones that's ever been seen. There have been so many in Dandeli, or there's been reports of so many across the world, in Africa or Brazil, but this one is the only documented, and you can see him again and again. He's still around in Kabini. So if you guys ever go to Kabini, you have a good chance of seeing him. So I think last when I did the seminar with UNESCO, I got a question about the scar on the head on his head. So when I'm talking to you about Saya, the Black Panther, you can see his personality. He fought with other leopards. He's very small. Though he's a male, he's the size of a female leopard. He's tiny, and he's fought with much larger males in his territory. There was Scarface, and there's another core area male or Chimera male in his territory, and he's fought with both these leopards, and that's the reason he has that scar on his head. So why was this panther and me seeing it so special? Because I got articles. Times of India featured me. Nikon India, Wild Karnataka, Times Now, India Times. All these news channels and newspapers, they recognize this work because I had spent my time since 2015 to almost till 2020, at the end of 2020, because we saw him in November. So I'd spent 5 years, over 25 trips, over almost 100 plus safaris, right? I'd been to almost 120 safaris and 9,000 minutes on this one road called Kaimara. The Panther is on this one triangle or a square loop, which is about Kaimara, Barballe, KV, Bisalwadi, and then Kaimara again. So it's that one square. And this Panther never leaves that square. His territory, 40% of his territory is in that place, in that square. And the 60% is in the core area, which tourists and me as well, we don't have access to. So it had always been a dream of mine to see the Panther. It's 2022. It's been 7 years. 2 years after I've seen the Panther, I've still not seen him again. It's just been that once. But I know so many people who've seen him, every time they've gone. They've seen him at least 20, 30, 40 times. But I guess my luck was to see him once and cherish that the most. And that is why seeing this only Panther after 9,000 minutes on one road, that's why I guess it was like a dream coming true. What makes a panther so unique? See, guys, the panther is nothing. If you see this picture, you can still see the spots here. He has the leopard spots, the rosettes of a leopard. He's nothing but a leopard, an Indian, and a normal leopard. His mates, he's mated with normal leopards. He's still a normal leopard, except he has an excess of it's a mutation. He's basically a mutant. He has an excess of this pigment that makes your, hair and what makes our hair black is also melanin. So he has an excess of this melanin compound, and that's why he's known as a melanistic leopard, and that's what makes you a black panther, a black leopard, the melanistic color. And that's the excess of the melanin compound and the black color. So he's unique. He's a mutant. He's unique. He's, as I said, he's one of the only one. And I don't call him Black Panther or anything, but so when my mentor Shaz named him Saya, the goal was different. So okay, think of it this way, guys. If you guys have dogs at home, cats at home, birds at home, I have 12 dogs at home. I I name my dogs, and once you name your dog, you never call you never call it, or you don't call it hey, or you don't you call it by its name. You call it by him, her, or you call it by his or her name. And that's what's special about giving the animal personality. When I say Saya, I don't say it. The Black Panther's not an it, but it's a him. He's a personality. I connect with him because he's a living being, and I want to do the best I can to help the forest department conserve this animal. I want the people also to care about him. That's why I want to portray him as Saya to the rest of the world. When you guys call him Saya, you see a person beyond the animal. You see a soul. You don't just see the body of the animal, but you see the animal's soul. And that is what, photography for me is about. Expressing these stories in such a way that you guys can see the soul. And once you see that personality of the animal, it urges you to conserve it. So that's what conservation does, and it's been effective. So this is something I wish I spoke about in my last UNESCO talk as well, but it ran across my mind that if you see the trends of tiger conservation, when the tiger census was done, I think in 2018, when India did its tiger census, you saw the increase in tiger population to almost 3,000 tigers in India. That is a huge increase from what it had been like 20 years ago. And the reason being, wildlife photography has impacted the economy. When tourists come to see these animals, some tourists, they just say click the pictures and go back, post it on social media, and just it's done. But many wildlife photographers and this community that wildlife photography has created has ensured that people care about these animals beyond just the pictures. As I said, right, if you guys care about Saya, that will promote the forest department or the government of India to put in the right resources to conserve this animal. And that is what photography does. If you use photography as a tool for conservation, if you use it the right way, you can use it to conserve these animals and to spread love for these animals. And that's uniting camera and conservation. So here are a few of the captions that I've written. So you can read these. So the leopard in the middle. I'm just gonna quickly go through it because I don't want to bore you guys because it's already been. I just don't want it to be just talking. And if there are any questions, I'd love to take them up as well. So if you see the leopard in the middle, her name is Mist. She's again, we named her Mist because again, I believe in giving names to these animals brings out their personality. And I say she consorts with the Phantom, and the Phantom is the Black Panther. So I'm building this life of this animal. I'm telling you the story, saying she's part of this fantasical world. You think of her as gold, gold in a world of dark, right? Imagine seeing gold in dark where it's all shining. And you see the leopard that way, her eyes, green in color, staring at you, and you see her as a pot of gold within the darkness. And you see her as the wife or the mate of the panther, and you think of her life, you think of her story, you think about, wow, Mist is a person, she's such a beautiful soul, and she has a story behind her. She's not just an animal that you see in the safari, but she has a life, she has a story that's behind her. And that's what I want to bring through my stories and through photography. And these are the few captions that I've written. The Paradise Flycatcher, which I shot in Bijapur exactly, and the tiger, which is of course the most famous animal in India. And you can see that I like this dark edit or this more fantasical edit on these animals, and that's what post processing really does. I don't say you have to post process it. I completely respect people who want it to be natural, but post processing is not wrong as long as you're telling the right stories. If you see, I'm not adding any fake subject. I'm not adding another leopard, or I'm not adding, a tiger sitting on another tiger. I'm not doing anything extraordinary. I'm just correcting the colors. I'm making it darker, or I'm making it brighter, just so that it becomes more appealing when people see it. When people see it, they must feel the picture, and that's what photography should be able to do in order to bring forth that personality so you guys can conserve it. So before I end, one last thing that I want to show you guys. I think, let me stop sharing. I need to share a different screen. I'm just gonna share my screen. And yeah, so what's my future project? So I aspire to be a filmmaker for National Geographic and Sony BBC Earth. Hopefully one day in the future they recognize my work. Given these opportunities with KSTA and UNESCO, these are such great opportunities for me to put myself out there, to present myself. And I really can't thank Ramesh sir enough, KSTA enough, Professor Kushaldas for hosting the UNESCO event. I just can't thank these institutions enough for giving me the opportunity. And what I want to do in my future is to film a documentary. So right now, with the Forest Department of Bijapur, I'm on the works of filming a documentary that involves flamingos and the biodiversity of Bijapur. So how can this lead to conservation? Nobody in Bijapur knows, or very few, like I'd say less than 10 or 20 people in Bijapur know that there are flamingos in Bijapur. And when I make a documentary that goes on YouTube, or hopefully it goes up on Netflix or Amazon Prime, and when people see this documentary, they're going to be like, oh, wow, there are flamingos in Bijapur. And when the Bijapur people see it, when 1,000 people from Bijapur see it, they know about this flamingo. And then we talk about how they can conserve it. We set up these rubrics where they can, go see these flamingos, and when they go to see these flamingos, that the amount can be used to contribute to the conservation or building a sanctuary for it. So it's about creating that effect and getting your content and your stuff out there so that it can. So I want to basically get this documentary. You can see this here. um, these are flamingos from Bijapur. I filmed this back in January. I'd shown Kushalda sir, and I was in Bijapur in January for my winter break. And this is when I filmed Flamingos during sunset. I sat there the entire day from morning to evening trying to film these birds. So I want, you know, I want the people to just see this documentary, to know that Bijapur has this biodiversity, and just to bring that forth. And here, this is, it's just incredible to see that Bijapur, a land that's known for drought, has birds and wildlife like this beautiful. So that was about it. That's my future project. And thank you so much again. Thank you, Ramesh sir, for giving me this opportunity to present here, and for all the guests who are here, Professor BJ Mulimani, Professor Arvind Madhyastha, who's here, who's giving this speech. I'm so excited to hear it. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity again as a 19-year-old to share on this platform, to be given this stage. It's such an honor. I aspire to be mentored by Ramesh sir, Kushal Das sir, Professor BJ Molimani. Thank you so much, and thank you so much. And I'm wishing everybody who's here today a very happy World Wildlife Day as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dhruv. Indeed, it was a very inspiring presentation, and you are an excellent speaker. I'm sure in the next few years, you'll be the most sought after speaker, not only in India, but throughout the world. Great work. Hearty congratulations to you. And the photographs are really incredible. You have taken a lot of pains in taking such good photographs. And I have one question. You said we have to feed the strays, especially I'm speaking about stray dogs. If you feed, the population of stray dogs will increase. In Bangalore, in every street you see there are so many stray dogs, and uh, stray dog bites are also increasing. In that case, should we feed or should we take them to some other place and relocate them, or birth control is more effective? What is your
So
opinion?
So the way we approach it with SPPA, especially what we're doing in Bijapur and what we hope to implement in a large city like Bangalore, is we hope to have, so it's always birth control first, birth control and vaccination. That's the most important. Even if birth control doesn't work, these stray dogs have to be vaccinated, and we're getting that done even in Bangalore. We're partnered with CUPA. We're focusing with organizations. We're doing it ourselves, where any stray dog that we find that is not vaccinated, the BBMP is doing their work as well. But it's about first giving the vaccine to these animals, because when they bite the people, though sir, I agree that most organizations are not effective in doing it. We as SPP are trying our best to get veterinarians who can help us in this movement, because vaccinating them is the most important, because the bite shouldn't affect the people. And secondly, birth control is important because we don't want more strays in the future to feed and to become reliant on us. And we're doing it we're doing it in Bijapur. We've started the campaign where we take these dogs, we neuter them, we bring them back to the same locality they were in. But more importantly, once we neuter them, we have created this community in Bijapur where everybody loves to feed stray animals. Where, like, there are about, I think, at least 1,000 people, part of SPP from Bijapur, and every one of those 1,000 people have a certain care. Every stray dog that has an injured leg or even a tick on it, we get immediate notifications on SPPA saying this is happening and we're doing this to save it, or we're taking it to this hospital. And it feels amazing to create that sense of community that cares about these animals. But relocation is wrong, because you don't want, unless there's a habitat for it, or if the government or if there's a private NGO that has sites where you can relocate them, it's the worst thing to do so. But having having said that, I think birth control, vaccination first, and then feeding these stray animals, because even after you do birth control, or even if the population still survives, you still have to feed them. They still have to survive. That's not a reason to kill them because they still have a life. So I think first birth control vaccination and then feeding them is important. So in that order.
Recently, we had a talk by Dr. Krishna Isur, who is an expert in rabies. It seems there is a vaccine which could be fed through a biscuit. It has come in Germany, it seems. We have to popularize in India. Thank you for
Yes,
your
sir. We'd love to
and
source it through SPPA, sir. Thank you for letting us know. We're gonna do our research from our end and we'd love to bring it to India.
thank you very much. Now, our mentor, Professor Muri Mani sir, is there. Over to you, sir, for your words.
Patil, it was an exciting, wonderful talk. Definitely your aim to inspire the students. You started wonderfully, let us save the things around us, simple animals. And you talked about compassion that is innate in you, empathy for animals. You were from Bijapur. Baswana said, "Dayave beku sakala pranigalallaraliyo." And that's a wonderful mission. And at such a young age, you have made a mark in the field. And when you are talking about the personality, soul of animals, you have to recognize them as the way we recognize other human beings, because this is needed, coexistence or no existence. Ecological balance, wonderful. Your ideas are wonderful. You want to name them, you don't want to call them yet. These are the messages you have sent wonderfully. You have mixed not only just photography, brought in philosophy, purpose of human life, animals, their role. We have to really preserve them, this conservation, this endangered species, and definitely youngsters like you can play a very, very important role. And I'm sure you have a wonderful future, great future. You have already brought credit to Bijapur, state, and India. Pray God that you will lead the world in this area, because your way of looking at things is different. It is not just animals. And these do this, further educate the villagers, the students in the villages. That is very much needed. Wonderful. God bless you. Wish you all the best, Patil. Wonderful.
So much, sir. Thank you.
Now, Kushal Das sir, for your words.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dhruv, for outstanding speech as you are there. And I don't want to interact because my mentor, who has already said actual the word, Dr. Biji Muni said that what exactly Dhruv Patil is. I just like to share that when I first interact with him, because I have a vast experience of teaching nearly 32 years in India, abroad, and with interacting with the many peoples, including Nobel laureates. So, and I have a mentor like Biji Muni sir and my postdoctoral guides and my PhD guides and all. So when I interact with Dhruv, actually, I couldn't believe that in his age, he's so mature. So this was the thing was struck to me in my mind, that how can he be so mature and so much of original thinking in his own way of his passion? Because first of all, student of that age, in my own experience, I have seen that they are not at all actually focused and passionate to their own work. Even the medical student whom I taught, they still are not confused, even after joining medicine, whether they did it right or wrong. So in this experience, I found Dhruv in this age is perfectly focused to his objective. That has actually attracted me. And then I interacted with his great mentor, his mom, Mrs. Asha Patil. She is here only today to listen her proud son's talk and interaction with the stalwarts like all of us here. So I was interacted. I found that he has actually inherited from his mother. So because mother accompanied her, as Mrs. Asha Patil personally told me that she accompanied him for many forests and many of the ventures. That actually I understood that how much requirement of a mother to mentoring a son is required, and why great mothers in our ancient religion and all always said as a Durga Ma, Kali Mata, all the Saraswati Ma, all the mother comes to a different level as a teacher and the scholar, most important scholar. I think that his mentoring was perfect. And I must admire that a wonderful mentoring by his great mother, Mrs. Asha Patil. And he also mentored by one of the Bijapur persons, environmental activist, and who is very personally known to me, and I like and fond of him, is Dr. Murugesh Pattan Shetty. So I found that he was actually inculcated in a very right and correct direction. Only I wish that he should, because he's too young to keep this focus and objective in a long journey, because we may not be there to see his exactly where he ultimately land up in our age group. But we feel that he should reach to the target in the future, because a lot of contribution he can do for the future if he's kept his focus objective, his humanitarian attitude, his respectful behaviors, and even respectful behavior to the animal reflects that how much he actually supposed to be. Means he's so perfectly shown. I think he's a perfect role model for our very young generation. They should see and they should listen. I request Dr. Ramesh, see that this YouTube, his talk is circulated by Department of Science and Technology from Government of Karnataka as fast as possible to understand the reality, because he is a perfect role model. I do not appreciate anybody in such a way, because I am a critical teacher with vast experience of teaching and mentoring a lot of students in my career for post-graduation, doctoral curriculum, postdoctoral curriculum. So I say that I see a future on him, that future for India itself. So thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh, to give me opportunity here to speak on it. And thank you, Dr. B.G. Mulimuni sir, my mentor, who actually chosen me to be LD today. I am here because of him, and Dr. M.S. Biradar sir. So I think that I have nothing to say about credibility, but only I share what I felt when I met him. And most of the UNESCO colleagues of mine, after listening, they are so admired, and they personally started communicating with Dhruv, and they're all gray-haired professors like me. So that indicate that he has a potential. The only I have told Dhruv, keep you always be humble. Very simple and humble attitude will be making you to a target to reach. Otherwise, you'll be dissipated. So keep this. Don't be pampered. Don't be bothered about that, what people are appreciating. Even Dr. Dash or Professor B.G. Molimani or Dr. Ramesh appreciating, this is not a matter for you. Your matter and goal should be larger than appreciation, what we are doing today. That's if you are focused, you will reach the target. Otherwise, not. I have a great hope for him. God bless Dhruv.
Thank you very much, sir. You have succinctly told what we felt. Really hearty congratulations to Mr. Dhruv. We look forward to many more great things by you. Wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Truly, you are a role model for all of us. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so
Now
much,
we
sir.
have with us eminent scientist Dr. Aravindh Madhyastha with us. He will be speaking on conservation. Welcome, Doctor. We are a bit 10 minutes late. So
No
10
problem,
minutes
no
to
problem.
me.
No problem, sir.
Dr. Aravindh Madhyastha is working as a senior fellow in Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment, ITRI, which is a very, very well-known institute worldwide. Before his talk, let me briefly tell about his achievements. Professor Madhyastha has done his BSc from Pune Prajna College, Udupi, later pursued his master's in Mangalore University, and continued to do his research and obtained his PhD from the Mangalore University. Now he is with ITRI. His research interests are biogeography and phylogeography of amphibians and non-marine mollusks, then freshwater biology and systematics, biodiversity documentation and digitization, application of species distribution models in conservation planning, and also the climate change and the species distribution. Dr. Madhyastha started his illustrious career as a research associate in ITRI in 98. Then he became a senior research associate, and presently is the senior fellow equivalent to associate professor and also convener since May 2021. Professor Madhyastha has published 92 papers in reputed journals of the country and also international, and he has written 14 book chapters and one book. He is also a member of various IUCN groups. He has availed summer fellowships from Indian Academy of Sciences. He has 9 ongoing projects, and he has completed 10 national and international projects. With this brief, I request Dr. Madhyastha to take over and deliver his talk. So, Madhyastha, there may be few participants in Cisco, but there are many in YouTube. Students feel that YouTube link will be easier to join. So they are on YouTube. Over to you for your presentation. We have with us Professor B.G. Murimuni sir, our esteemed JSTA member and former Vice Chancellor of Gulbarga University and BLD University. He is the mentor for KSTA and us, and he has been with us for all the talks. And we have with us Dr. Kushal Das sir, who is the director of BLD University. He also has been guiding us. Now, I also welcome all the participants for this second talk. Over to you, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ramesh, for this elaborate introduction. I feel embarrassed to listen to this, but you are humble. I think you are doing an extensive introduction. So I attended last part of Dhruv's presentation. Nice photographs and nice way of telling stories through photography. I personally do a lot of photography. I have more than 1 lakh images collected, created in last almost 2 decades. So yeah, I know what's the importance of this photography in wildlife conservation, not only on-site conservation, but also creating the awareness. Awareness is also a major part in the conservation activity. Unless you create awareness, you can't do the conservation, because we are all part. Professor Basaraj was telling that we are all a part of this environment, and we should there's coexistence and other things. Unless we create an awareness to the communities, not only the rural communities but also in the cities, we can't do effective wildlife conservation. Well, I'll share my screen. It's giving some issues. Give me 2 minutes. There is some issue here. I'll just try to fix it. I'm using Mac, so it gives issues often.
You can share the PPT with me. I can share it from here as you talk.
It's a very big file. It's I can try to
drive, sir, to the
Okay.
kst.gok@gmail.com.
KST Academy. Okay.
Not academy. kst.gok@gmail.com.
Can you repeat? KSTA?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. KSTA.gok, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, you can share through Drive and give me the editor option so that I can get it.
Sure. It's uploading. In the meantime, I'll try.
Yeah.
Since I'm using Mac, it always gives issues with this sharing.
Yeah, Mac has an issue with the Cisco.
I just relog in. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, is it uploaded, sir?
It's uploading slowly.
Okay.
I think 5 is B. That's the reason it's taking time.
Yeah. Did you receive?
Yes, sir. I got it. I am just downloading. I'll share
Okay.
it from here.
Yeah.
Are you able to see, sir, now?
No, it's
Not yet come. It is
yeah.
showing starting to share. Yeah,
Yeah.
It has come.
Just
Okay.
so that I can change the slide.
Yeah. Okay. Can you make it full screen?
Yeah, full screen. Presentation mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Ramesh, and all the entire team of KSTA for giving me this opportunity to talk about wildlife conservation. I specifically talk about wildlife conservation in the Anthropocene. Anthropocene is the unofficial geological time where human activities have started impacting the global environment, be it in biodiversity or climate or anything. So it is not an official geological time, but it is unofficial thing, but extensively used in the literature and other stuff. So next slide, please. Yeah, uh, you know, we have immense diversity of living organism on the earth. The estimates of described species ranges from 2 to 5 million, but it all depends on who's giving what kind of estimates and what kind of methods they have employed to come up with this number. But and also there are another 5 to 10 to 100 million. Some Wilson like people they say 20 to 50, and some are say 100 million species, which is yet to be described or formally given name. Uh, uh, exist still they are, if you look at India also, the similar case. In the last 1 year, Zoological Survey of India has compiled new discoveries from India, which lists more than 50 new species of animals, mostly coming from invertebrates, then coming from lower vertebrates like fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. So, but in this 2 to 5 million species, whatever we have estimated, majority constitute invertebrates, which are less or underrepresented in any of our conservation activities or conservation measure, not only in India but entire globe. But India is terribly underrepresented, but in many other European countries or in America or Australia, there are certain kind of conservation measures have been put in for the to protect these smaller unknown animals. Next slide, please. But if you look at the the life form on the earth, and we are human beings are only one species, but our biomass, if you see on the right side of this one, which is much higher than the biomass of the lower invertebrates. So that is a real cause of concern. One species occupying so much of biomass, and certainly will have an implication on the resources, what is there on this planet. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Already there. Sir, already there. It might take some time as the internet has
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So, given this huge biomass and huge density of human beings, we destroyed some 57% of the forest in last 10,000 years, or in last uh, mm, 4 years, 38% of the forest has been lost. And similarly, a lot of animals have been pushed to extinction. Take for example of dodo in Mauritius, or passenger pigeon in America, or cheetah in India. The last cheetah survived in India was in 1953. Before that, India had a huge and very good population of cheetah, and many species have been found in very small pockets. If you take for example India, that the Gir lion is restricted to only the Gir forest, or tigers once spread entire India from the coastal plains to very high altitude, snow-covered mountains, like in Arunachal Pradesh. Recently, they found some evidence for the tiger in that very high altitude ice-covered mountains. So now what has happened is the ranges of these large animals have contracted significantly, thanks to all the activities of the humans, either by encroaching the forest land and converting them into a different land use. Different land use here, I mean maybe agricultural land, urban area, linear intrusions like roads, rails, canals, and building up large dams. So many of these species either pushed to extinction or closer towards extinction, or the population has decreased drastically. So this is the kind of effect humans has on the ecosystem. Next slide, please. I'll switch off the video. Yeah. So this is one of the examples of how damaging we are to this environment. This is a photo from the Brazilian rainforest. It is extensively burned for grazing land or harvested for timber. And so on and so forth. And this rainforest harbors significantly large proportions of biodiversity, be it in soil worm to a larger mammal, or very colorful evolutionary, very old lineages of birds or insects. Similarly, if you look at many lakes in India are polluted, because anything we consider as a common property, we tend to overuse it, not make an effort to preserve or conserve those habitats or ecosystem, without realizing that any such activity will only not only harm the biodiversity which harbors, but also ultimately affects human beings. For example, the recent outbreak of corona, it all started just this morning. I was reading an article published in the Nature journal, a prestigious journal, just this morning. Doctor is there, Kushal Das is there, probably he can also pitch in here that the virus originated in the wet markets of Wuhan. Just this morning there was some article. So we are, and imagine how much economic loss we have faced in the last 2 years, and how much life we have lost. Very close, near and dear ones have died because of this terrible pandemic. It's all because of the our activities, which we have not, which has resulted in these kind of catastrophic events. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you look at this graph, the number of species that have gone extinct since 1500 to 2020, maybe 570 years. So significant proportion of species that have gone extinct is in the mollusk, Basonahulu, or the snails, whatever we call Mrudwangigalu, or those things. We always think that mammals, birds, fishes are the one which have gone extinct because of the human activities, but the maximum extinction has occurred in the mollusk, terrestrial, freshwater, and in the marine environment, because these mollusks are highly sensitive to the changes in the environment, much more than the birds, mammals, or fishes. See, this we have failed to appreciate the value of other smaller organisms, be it in this research community, or in the funding agency, or among the common, equally important, like tiger, birds, or frogs, or reptiles. So we are responsible for extinction of so many species in the last 250 years. Next slide, please. And this is very, very interesting data. You can see the data source below. It is published in 2020. See how the human migration from out of Africa into Europe, India, and North America and South America, Australia, has led to the, wherever we went, we constantly wiped out the larger mammals. So, or pushed many mammals towards extinction. This is a very beautifully illustrated that wherever our footprint is there, we are creating the havoc. So this is very sad, but that's what it's happening now. It's a high time we understand this and come up with a very appropriate conservation measures, where we protect not only large mammals but entire biodiversity for human well-being. Human well-being, if you want to be healthy and happier, we need to be with the nature. We need greenery. We need fresh air. We need clean water. We need fertile soil. It's all these comes from the biodiversity, because they provide a lot of ecosystem services. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, just to give an illustration, this is the painting from the Emperor Akbar's time. There, he used to employ 10,000 cheetahs to hunt black buck or other animals. So this is a very old historical painting. So this shows that cheetah was once upon a time was very, very common in India. he has to have a 10,000 cheetah means, imagine the population which we had not only in India but in Pakistan, Afghanistan, those the drier landscape of South and Middle East Asia. So now cheetah is restricted to some parts of Middle East and in Africa. So India or Pakistan or Afghanistan, we don't have cheetah. Cheetah is completely gone extinct. Last surviving individual died was in 1953. This is like a kind of effect we have on the ecosystem. Next slide, please. So what? Animals appeared, animals disappeared during the course of Earth history in the last 3.4 billion years of Earth history. And during this Earth history, there are 5 large extinctions, which are given in different colors here, starting from red to cyan or green on the right side, 5th mass extinction. So there are 5 mass extinction, where the significant proportion of the Earth biodiversity has been lost. So during the Permian extinction, we talk about 250 million years, 96% of all Earth species have gone extinct. This is one of the greatest extinction ever happened on the Earth. But we are into the 6th extinction, 6th mass extinction. There's general question might come to all of your mind was, so what? Species will come, species will go. Why should we worry about 6th mass extinction? Next slide, please. We should be worrying about 6th mass extinction because this is driven by the human activities, not by the natural phenomena like earthquake, volcanic event, or meteoritic impact, or sea level changes. These are all the natural events that has caused extinction. In the last 5 extinctions. But the 6th one is human beings are responsible for pushing many of the species towards extinction. See, according to Stuart Pym, he's one of the greatest ecologists from Duke University. He says that 100 to 1,000 species are lost per million per year. So this is not in the natural loss. For example, pink-headed duck in Orissa, or cheetah, or passenger pigeons once was filled with entire North America. In 100 years, that species have been hunted down. Similarly, when Europeans colonized Mauritius, Maldives, I think, Mauritius, yeah. They hunted this dodo because dodos are flightless birds evolved in the absence of any predator. They have never seen a predator. So it was very, very docile, very, very, what to say, easy to catch a bird. And, when the sailors from Europe, they settle there, it's easy meat for them to eat. So pushed that species to extinction. What has happened later was this dodo bird used to eat cycas. Cycas is a plant as a fruit, and disperse the seed after processing that inside the stomach. Many birds, many plants requires birds to process the seeds and disperse it for the efficient germination. So because the bird is absent, there are no other animals that fed on the cycas. Because of that, the cycas population started declining and were in the verge of extinction. See, one species have gone extinct, and another species is towards extinction because of this. There's an intricate link between one to the other, which again we fail to appreciate those linkages in the ecosystem. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we'll ask, all these are fine, they are going extinct. So why to conserve it? that main question will come into our mind. And the next question, next slide, please. Because we need to conserve, because biodiversity provides ecosystem services. Ecosystem services are the services which ecosystem provides for human beings, for human well-being, such as pollination service. If you are if you go to market, you see a lot of vegetables and fruits. 90% to 95% of 90 to 95% of all those fruits and vegetables, what we eat, what we grow, are pollinated by bees and other insects. So pollination services are very, very important if you want vegetables and fruits. And many species help in pest and disease management, like a barn owl, or barn owls are big white-colored owl with heart-shaped face. They eat at least 2 rats per night. Imagine there are how many barn owls are there on this earth. Imagine how many rats they are eating, especially during the harvest of paddy. So these species and these biodiversity are also helping pest and disease management. Several insectivorous birds, spiders, there are n number of things which help in pest and disease management. And also freshwater food, mussels, the clams or bivalves, whatever we call it, are known to filter the fresh water, muddy water, and release the fresh water because of their innate behavior of filter feeding. So the species which are found in the freshwater help in the filtering of the water so that we'll get clean water. And there are food which we eat, fiber what we use it for our clothing and other stuff, and the genetic resources, diverse genetic resources, like different varieties of paddy, different varieties of wheat, maize, so on and so forth. They provide the genetic resources for our well-being. And also we all enjoy bird watching, butterfly watching, or seeing tiger in the national park, or just sitting or relaxing next to the beach or banks of the river. That's a recreational thing, and we get happiness out of it. And this Indian culture, where the animals and the plants are built into our culture. Like plants are worshipped. There are plants which are associated with certain planet, and plants are used for certain plants are used for a certain kind of god and goddesses, like Bilwa used for Shiva, and so on and so forth. There's a spiritual and cultural identity which these biodiversity or wildlife give it to us. And also they are help in disaster management, like tsunamis. Like in 2004 tsunami, it has been shown that those areas which had large swaths of or stretches of mangroves actually got less affected by tsunami compared to those regions we didn't have. Help in the carbon sequestration and storage, thus regulating the climate and the climate change effects, nutrient cycling the air, and there are many such ecosystem services which ecosystem provides for these purposes. We need to conserve wildlife or biodiversity. Next slide, please. Yeah, these ecosystem services can be classified into provisioning service, regulating service, and the cultural service. And overarching all these three are just supporting services. So we depend on the ecosystem day in and day out for our various, for our survival and the other activities. So we need to conserve for our, if you want be in good health, and if you want nutritious food and fresh air and water. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is there was news recently or some time back that there's a colony collapse disorder, and if you ask people in the local area or the village, they say honeybees population have declined, and yield has gone down. We don't get yield despite adding a lot of fertilizers. All these kind of things we heard from the local communities in Biliganangan Hills, Malay Madheshwara Hills near Mysore, and many other parts of southern Tamil Nadu where atrium works along with the local communities. So the problem is the pesticides. We use pesticides to control other pests so that we'll get more yield, but we don't appreciate that the bees are also dying along with the other thing, because most of these are non-specific pesticides. So, and also there are parasitic mites, wives, and genetically modified or plants which are responsible for the colony collapse disorder. In America, it's the biggest, the largest thing what they grow is the almond and pistachios. So they need honeybees for the pollination of the flowers of almonds, especially in the California region in the western coast. So they have to resort to the artificial bee boxes. They carry them in the truck. They will keep it for some time, and after some time they'll take it and keep it in some other farm. So instead of maintaining the natural or population of honeybees, they have to resort to the moving honey bee boxes so that honeybees can pollinate the large stretches of almond and pistachio farms. So this is very expensive because maintaining the honey box is one, the transportation is another one, plus the other overhead cost associated with that. If you have conserved the bee population or maintained the bee population, you would have saved so much of economy to the country, and we would have got all the services free of cost. Now we are paying cost for our own undesired activities. Next slide, please. So for all these reasons, we need to conserve. But there are other other question also arises. We need to preserve also. So what's the difference between conservation and preservation? Conservation is a wise use of natural resources without over exploiting them, because humans are also population part of the ecosystem. So we need to use natural resources for our food, shelter, and clothing, and so on and so forth. And if you want the people to be part of the conservation, if you want people to appreciate the biodiversity and if you conserve, then we need to involve communities also in the conservation. We cannot isolate people and say that no, you cannot go here, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And with that thing, we cannot do any effective conservation activities. So on the other hand, preservation is a protecting or saving your resources, where you are not allowed to go to that area or hunt anything or collect anything, maybe non-nuclear forest products, fruits, tubers, and so on and so forth. Preservation excludes human beings from collecting any stuff from the forest. So this is a very, very tricky and debatable. Some set of people, they want preservation, and other set of people want conservation. So it's a very, very debatable issue. Both of them are right in their own perspective. But if you put ourselves, human beings, as a part of the ecosystem, then we need to go for a conservation approach rather than the preservation approach. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, so same, different way of telling it. Preservation typically refers to the setting aside areas of land that are either human free of obvious marks of human influences. It's like an inviolate area. You cannot go and do any such activity. But on like a conservation, they are allowed to extract some resources. Like, there are a lot of tribals living in the forest. Like, if you go to Bilgingangan Hills, that's a Soliga tribe. They historically they are dependent on collecting amla, then arale, honey, and many other non-timber forest products for their sustenance and for selling in the local market. Similarly, in the Northeast India, if you go, a lot of plants and animals they are collecting for their subsistence. So if you completely isolate them, then they can't be a part of the larger community-based conservation initiatives. Next slide. Yeah. So conservation encompasses the past, present, and future. And past means, there are a lot of landscape which has been degraded. Could be iron ore mines or coal mines or any other such mines or extensively harvested landscape. Those areas should be restored using restoration science, so that you will develop in a sort of in a natural ecosystem where you build a landscape or a habitat for the wildlife to come back. In the present, whatever we have, we conserve it and maintain the biodiversity, and for the future also for the next generation or in the future generation. So conservation encompasses from past, present, and future time scenarios. Next slide, please. Yeah, where and how to conserve. Fine, we need to conserve. Where to conserve and how to conserve. So next slide, please. So typically we conserve the region where which is still have got very good biodiversity or wildlife. Yeah, and using the different approaches like, as listed here, the tiger reserve, national park, wildlife sanctuary, community reserve, or informal way of conserving habitat. Tiger reserves are meant specifically for tigers. It's like a preservation kind of an approach. There are some activities might be allowed, but not significantly, like in Bilgirangan Hills. Community Soliga tribe still, though it's a tiger reserve, the tribal people still stay very inside the core areas of the tiger reserve, because they are there for last, I don't know how many centuries. So, and there are national parks approach. There's a wildlife sanctuary approach. In the wildlife sanctuary, the local communities can extract certain kind of non-timber forest products. On the other hand, national park, all kind of activities are totally banned unless and otherwise principal chief conservator of forest gives a special permission to collect a certain kind of product for the local communities, not for any kind of a commercial kind of activities. The community reserves are those areas which are in the buffer areas or adjoining areas or in the corridors between the two large protected area where there's good forest cover or a typical habitat, and most of the landscape also belong to the private agencies or private people. So those areas will be called as conservation reserves or community reserves, where people or communities will be part of conserving that landscape, where the people are involved in conserving or maintaining that landscape, so that wildlife can move and wildlife can utilize those landscape. At the same time, communities use those regions for collecting non-timber forest products or growing certain kind of what is that grains or pulses and those kind of things, or small scale plantations and so on and so forth. So community research is purely people involvement in the conservation. The informal way of conservation is the sacred grove. In the coastal Karnataka or in Coorg region, you might have heard that Devarakadu or Khan, Nagabana. So these are all the small forest patch which have a sort of original trees and the biodiversity, where there's also a deity associated with that small patch. The certain sect or communities will go and worship those deities, and any activities like harvesting, cutting, or collection of any kind of thing is prohibited in those kind of informal conservation areas like sacred groves and community groves. This is very, very popular in Northeast India. More than 50% of the land owned by the communities, which are very sacred, called sacred forest. Any kind of activities or collection is totally prohibited. And many such example exist not only from India but in many other parts of the world where there historically the communities are using and preserving those landscapes. Next slide, please. Yeah. So India, is doing decent in terms of conservation in the form of the protected area. India's, 5.26% of India's geographical area is demarcated as conservation reserves, or which has national park, wildlife sanctuaries, all kind of things, both in freshwater, terrestrial, and the marine habitat. The conservation is not necessarily should be in the terrestrial environment or national park, sanctuaries, and reserves. Not only in the terrestrial habitat but also in the freshwater and the marine. India has got several marine national parks like Gulf of Mannar, Piraten Island, and many others. And we have several bird sanctuary like Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, Rangantettu, Guduvi, Chintamani Bird Sanctuary in West Bengal. There are several such sanctuaries meant for the aquatic birds. There are sanctuaries and national parks for marine biodiversity, and significant of our protected areas are in the terrestrial habitat across India's in the geographic area. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the map from the article that shows that the distribution of the protected areas. Protected areas include national park, sanctuary, community reserves, and the tiger reserves, elephant reserves, dolphin reserves, and so on and so forth. So this is the distribution of protected areas in India, pretty much covered, but there are certain regions still it is not covered under protected area network. And as you can see, many of our protected areas are very, very small. So this is also an issue when it comes to the long-term conservation of the species. For example, elephant, tiger, and those things require large swath of forest or the landscape to be conserved. On the other hand, birds or reptiles or amphibians, if you want to conserve, small landscape can do. But in majority of the Indian protected areas are meant for large and charismatic animals or the habitats, not for the smaller organisms. Next slide, please. Yeah, and one of the success of our conservation measures in India is the tiger population, right? Now we all know that in 1970s tiger population was less than 1,000 or around 1,000. Now it's around close to the 3,000 and odd. So these kind of protected areas or the conservation measures actually helped in the recovering the population of our national animal, the tiger. There are many such examples where the population have actually recovered because of the very strict conservation put in place by the government of India, either in the form of national park, tiger reserves, or any other kind of conservation activities. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just to show that how the population have increased of the tigers in India, and India has the largest density of the tiger in the entire world. That's why we need to have a special conservation measures for this mega charismatic animals. Next slide, please. So it's all good, our conservation, it's happening, and people are aware of conservation measures, and people are contributing for the conservation, including the state and central government. But there's innate bias in our conservation approach. So, as I told earlier, the significant proportion of the biodiversity belongs to the invertebrates, which is 97% of the total animal diversity is comprised of invertebrates, starting from poriferans to the echinoderm, that's starfishes, including insects and other stuff. But all our conservation measures, or significant proportion of our conservation measures, is biased towards the large animals like tigers, elephant, lion-tailed macaque, or a large stretches of evergreen forest or a grassland, and so on and so forth. And lower organism, be it a fish, amphibians, or invertebrate like insects or snails, earthworms, and never been a part of our larger conservation agenda of the any government, not only in India but in other parts of the world also, except for few larger developed nation. Next slide, please. Yeah. So because the conservation bias arises from the disproportionate amount of funding is given to magnificent animals, because there's nothing wrong in it to prefer larger animals, because if you want to involve people in the conservation, you need to show them the charismatic animal, the tiger or a large beautiful bird, or a some monkey, or some rabbits. We don't have rabbit, but they have. So and we'll get a more funding from the private donors as well as from the communities for the conservation. But the less charismatic, drab animals, though they are equally important in the landscape, never gotten any attention. I'll give one example. There's a mussel, the clam in the Tunga and Bhadra rivers of Karnataka. There are only 6,000 individuals left. This is as rare as tiger. But except 2030, in the entire India, nobody else knows about that mollusk, which is not found nowhere else in the world. And its closest relative is the oyster from the South America and Africa. So there are such animals which also deserves attention to be conserved. Next slide, please. Give me 5 minutes, I'll wind up. Yeah, next slide. I spoke about this, Next slide. Yeah. So what are those challenges in the conservation? Yes, we all want to conserve the landscape, biodiversity, and the services what they provide, but it is not free of challenges. But the challenge of conservation in human-dominated landscape is really severe problem, because there are biodiversity within the human-dominated landscape, maybe urban ecosystems, peri-urban ecosystems, which don't come under any of these protected area in the network. So how to conserve there? What measures has to be taken? It's a very challenging question to address. So, and also given the high population density and the different socio-economic, cultural, socio-political issues, India is a very dynamic landscape, and the varied culture, diversity, mindset. We all agree on that. Agree and disagree. We fight and other things. Given all this, so it's becoming really challenging in conserving the biodiversity what we have in our landscape. Next slides. Next slide. So we also have a challenge in funding. We have we are still a developing country, and we have challenge. We have a huge population, and any government's what is that priority is to build a good infrastructure, good health infrastructure, physical infrastructure, health infrastructure, education, and funding for any kind of conservation activities always takes backseat, especially countries like India, where the population is huge and the funding is very limited. And also we don't have that many trained human resources to do the research, generate the knowledge, and implement the conservation activities on field. Forest department are doing fantastic work throughout India, but that's not enough. So people like me, you also are also a part of this conservation activities. We also should contribute to this effort, and also we need some trained human resources help department and the government in conserving the amazing diversity what we have. And we have a lack of understanding of management of wildlife, because we have not done any good research on the lower taxa like amphibians, reptiles, and invertebrates. Next slide, please. So the animals outside protected areas also not safe, because they don't confine themselves to a protected area. They'll keep moving, right? It is not like a protected areas are all fenced. They're all open areas. Once they move out, they are finding it's very challenging for them, and also the conservation agencies to protect them. There are challenges despite we having so much of protected areas. Next slide. So, so there's a lot of conflict when the animals moved out of this protected area. There's a conflict. You might have seen, tiger being killed, leopard being killed, or a tar ball has been thrown onto elephant, and so on and so forth. These challenges, conflicts, has to be resolved in a very uh, uh, innovative manner, because wildlife is not confined, or biodiversity is not confined into that the boundaries of the protected areas. So this has to be resolved in a very mm, uh, mm, unique way, so that both wildlife and the human beings can coexist and derive benefit from the environment. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are the examples of the conflict when the animals comes out of the protected areas. I'm not, these are the very common scene throughout India, especially in the peri-urban or in the villages surrounding the protected areas. Next slide, please. Yeah, there are some efforts in India and other parts of the world to mitigate this conflict by providing compensation. Forest Department do provide compensation for the uh, farmers whose crop has been raided by the elephants and wild boars and other animals. And awareness program, we had to create an aware, and we have to build a resilient within ourselves to protect these conserve these animals. And we can also rescue and relocate the animals which are involved in the conflict. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the end of my talk, and I'd like to thank KSTA, Mr. Ramesh, and the entire team, and others, and Google for Images. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madhyastha, for a very, very interesting and scintillating talk. Thank you very much for your time and good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
On behalf of KSTA and all the participants, we are very grateful to you. We have with us Professor Kushal Das, sir. Sir, over to you for your words.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Dr. Madhyastha. It is a very wonderful story with full of informations, graphics, and a lot of science in it, for which we have actually shown a story of, specifically in Indian context, how the biodiversity is affected and various priorities which human being has considered. You have rightly pointed out many of the issues, specifically our understanding of the biodiversity, specifically on the animals and the lower animals. As initially in the beginning of your talk, you have mentioned about the coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2, and its origin from the bats, then it goes to the animals in the Wuhan market, and from there, and how the cycle goes. One of the reasons is that we as a human being still not understood, except I have seen in my own eyes, in European countries, specifically Western European countries, are extremely sensitive with the biodiversity and animal. As you said at the end, that there is a biasness among the animal for conservation or protections wherever it goes. Among the higher animal get a privilege and all. This is actually not there in the European country, Western European countries, where I saw even a squirrel also given, a small bird also given the equal care and love. And also they have, in fact, they do everything. I didn't see any zoo in Western European countries in my experience. There is a natural zoo. In Sweden, the zoos means everything is open, and actually man and birds can they work, and they can elephant and all that. There is no elephant. There is a other species what they kept it. They are roaming there all, and they do not bring a species which is not adjusted climatically or geographically or ecologically or food and diet habit to another tropical, another countries which is not a tropical. So this is I have not seen in the Western European sanctuary of the animal, where nothing is there which is actually been brought from other country and making it as a zoo, which you will be finding in Singapore. So yeah, there is a mentality, as you have focused this point, I find this mentality of us is a quite interesting in these aspects. So this is need to be given an attention. And the bird you have mentioned about the dodo, and when I visited Mauritius 2013, when Professor Buji Munimuni sir was our Vice Chancellor to University of Mauritius Faculty of Medicine, and I found that everywhere there is a national bird is a dodo, and they say the symbol of the Mauritius is a dodo, but there is no dodo. So, no dodo. Even one museum I visited, where actually I didn't find any dodo. There are a model of dodos are there. So, and some species they kept it as they said that it's the egg of dodo, but I did not find that whether it is stone, because it is almost stony. This is in my own experience in Mauritius. So I have a doubt that that whether these governments of every country are sincere, except Western European country. I include America also. Are they sincerely trying to preserve or conserve the animal with the nature and human being as a coexistence? Everywhere there is a conflict. Even the Russia, there is a conflict. Even the Masai Maras are now protesting because their all habits and all the thing has been taken out. It has gone to the industrial development in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So this is a worldwide, this protest is going on, that how they are actually disseminating the whole community caste to equal system. They stay with the animals and also the human being. That has been disrespected by the national attitude of the Ethiopia. I condemn it personally. Though I'm not a biologist, I'm a medical scientist, but I condemn it. So in this perspective, what do you think on India? What exactly India you feel that it is doing right job or average job or need lot of things to do? Please you comment on that.
Yeah. We for certain kind of taxa we are doing good job, like tigers and elephant, and recently a project dolphin and other things. Good job. But in many other group, we are doing average or poor. For example, the lot of infrastructure development which is running through the national parks, because those the regions still there's intact forest left. So in those cases, and also we are bent upon building the large dams, building the rivers. So these are all not a good sustainable. It's not a sustainable development at all. At the end of the day, we need to have a sustainable development. Average, I would rank our initiative as average to poor, to certain group of taxa. For certain, it's very good, like tiger, elephant, and those kind of taxa. So yeah, I cannot say put a same scale for everything. I rather go by habitat conservation, large mammals, lower mammals, invertebrate. I rather rank differently for the different thing. For some it is good, some it is bad. It's a mixed form for me.
Right. And what about the man and animal conflicts in India?
It is it's still there. It is in some region it's still rising, despite of awareness and other kind of legally they are not supposed to hunt or kill, but still it is increasing. For example, one of my friend, she is working on fishing cat. It's a only cat. This is a small cat, slightly bigger, slightly smaller than a dog and slightly bigger than our domestic cat, found in the wetland. It's the only cat which is found in the marshes, mangroves of Sundarban, Bhitarkanika and other things. There are a lot of examples of late. The villagers are killing this cat, which is found only in the eastern coast, Sri Lanka, and some parts in Southeast Asia, not anywhere else. So that kind of conflict, there are two types of conflict. One, because of the trades, the farm and the plantations, so there's economic loss, so they'll kill it. The second thing is just for if the animal ventures into their backyard, into the village, that leopard, what has happened last month or so sometime, that is just it ventured into their the village and they've been killed and dragged them brutally killed and dragged them. So those kind of conflicts are still increasing. We need to have a combination of strict implementation of the law as well as the awareness. So a lot of awareness needs to be created if you want to create it, not only the implementation of the strict law, but also the awareness. It has to go hand in hand. Forest department is also doing a lot of awareness campaign and all those things surrounding the protected area, because protected area is a porous. It is not a watertight compartment. Animals do venture out, right? So we had to be resilient towards those animals, and forest department do a lot of these kind of activities, trying to influence people not to get into any kind of illegal activities. And a lot of NGOs are also trying to create awareness and helping them to claim compensation for the damage what animals have caused. But yeah, it won't solve in 2 or 3 years or 10 years. It will take some time, but it can be achieved in the longer run. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Ramesh, we have Dr.
Yes, sir.
Mukesh Patan Shetty.
Yeah, we
He's
have
a
it.
he's the one of the jewel, I must say, that his contribution specifically to make the Bijapur green.
Oh,
Yeah,
along
he's
with
one of the
president,
architects.
immense.
Yes.
Kindly you invite Dr. Murugesh here.
Yeah, Murugesh Patan Shetty, sir, welcome.
Sir,
That's
thanks
why
a lot.
that's why I requested my colleague to make him a panelist so that we can listen to him also. Over to you for your words.
Sir, I think I was listening to Sir now regarding the man-animal conflict. What Aravindh sir was speaking. Now, I think we are facing some problem in our places here by name called Devar Gennur. You know, really leopard ventured into villagers, and it has taken out, I think, 12 to 15 sheep or goat. Now, first time in the history of Bijapur district, I think MP Patil took initiation to get some compensation for the people who have lost their animals. So it is a type 2 kind of a man versus animal conflict where the leopard is venturing out into the villagers. That is one. Second thing is even Dhruv might have spoke to you. We are working on some conservation, community conservation in this area. So lots of new species are being seen. And even because of Dhruv, even I have developed the wildlife photography as a passion in my side also. Recently, 4 days back, visited Anshi, Kadra, and Patoli, Kulgi. Saw near about 5 leopards. One of the precious time which I've spent there. And what I say that this connecting a camera with the conservation, I can say the perfect team where we will try to push more number of people into wildlife photography so that they can bring in a lot of information to the society, so that society will have a big support to conserve these animals. Some people don't know these. I should say thanks to these all wildlife photographers. Maybe Dhruv is one wildlife photographer, Shaz Jain, Vishnumurthy. There are so many people. Mithun, VMR sir, Vijay Mohan Raj sir. There are so many people. They are trying to see. Dhruv has made one person as a wildlife photographer. So likewise, if this chain goes on, so we will see to that the conservation will be done very in a systematic way. And thanks to forest department, and there are I think 90% of the forest departments officers are very passionate about the environment, sir. I would like to quote a small example of one by name of Parashurama Bhajantri he is a forest guard. He is working in Kadra. In his lifetime, he has rescued near about 28 king cobras. So such kind of passionate people are there. I have seen one deputy range forest officer by name Shashidhar Sajjan. Now he is creating a butterfly park. So normally we have stopped seeing those butterfly park now, and even butterflies now. And he has shown me around 6 different species, around 30 different species of butterfly, which we are unknown. And I should say thanks to Ramesh sir and Kushal sir, the kind of platform which you are creating for young budding photographers like Dhruv. You are creating a big platform for these people, sir. If I imagine down the line around another 10, 15 years, what could be the kind of a passion of Dhruv? We can see that. Right, sir? So I should say these are you both are the people who are nurturing this boy who is going to become a big photographer in future and trying to work as a wildlife conservationist. I'm sorry, sir. I was 20 minutes. I was not in the discussion. I was listening to sir, even Aravindh sir. Sir, very thorough information you have given.
Yes.
One should even I will go through once after this. I have a YouTube link, so I can go through that. And thank you, Ramesh sir, Kushal sir, for giving me
Thank
the
you, sir.
opportunity to speak here.
Thank you very much for joining this meeting. Thank you. I have listened to you about the conservation of Bijapur area. So I thought it is an opportunity for us also to listen to you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir.
I request Dr. Ramesh, kindly
Yes, sir.
you share our email ID with Dr. Aravindh, my email ID to him
Yes, sir,
and his
yes, sir.
email ID to me. Though I am a medical person, but I have a deep passion towards that, but I'm physically challenged, so I cannot go many places. But I share it in the eyes of Dhruv or eyes with Murugesh. I see it, the world,
Yes,
through
sir.
their eyes. And so also now today with you, interaction with Dr. Arvind, I'm so amazed that so many people are working in this line. I think as a medical people's doctors and scientists, we should actually cross this. And we are trying in our university, and I am doing this job to cross sections to mix it to the other branches so that there should be improvement of the knowledge. So please share your
Yeah, I will share.
email ID to each others.
Yes, yes, yes. I will do this. So once again, thank you very much, Dr. Arvind, for your time and wonderful presentation. As you know, KSTA organizes many training programs and international days like this. We have a good campus in GKVK. We will be having offline programs also. I will be inviting you for presentation. Thank you very much. Grateful to you. Thank you very much, Kushal Das sir, and thank you very much, Dr. Murugesh sir, for
So thank you a lot.
this meeting. I
Thank
thank
you.
all the participants who have joined on Cisco WebEx and YouTube. We'll be having many more talks like this by youngsters and eminent personalities. I urge all of you to join and broaden the horizon. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Good day, sir.
Thank you very much.